Good afternoon. Thank you again for joining us for our webinar, Data to Design 2, Using Research to Drive the Creative Process. This is an update from the presentation that we did last year around the same time, using the latest data from the 2016 NMI Healthy Aging Database Study to inform the presentation. Again, my name is Jen Lennon. I'm a marketing coordinator here at the Stelter company. And as an industry leader in the planned giving marketing industry, Stelter is committed to providing innovative solutions and education for your marketing needs. So we are happy to provide you with this complimentary webinar today, which is being presented by Cheryl Sturm, our Director of Marketing, and Zach Christensen, Creative Director, both at the Stelter company. Cheryl Sturm has over 30 years of global communications and marketing experience. She is responsible for the overall market positioning of the Stelter company brand as our Director of Marketing. Now, prior to joining Stelter, Cheryl worked for 10 years in the biotech industry. She was responsible for the launch of new functional ingredient products in North America, Japan, Korea, and Indonesia. And before that, she also worked with Young and Rubicon Advertising as the Senior Vice President Account Group Director, responsible for the brand building efforts of a wide range of clients, including John Deere Credit, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Lotto America. Cheryl graduated from Westmore College in Lamars, Iowa with a BA in secondary education with an emphasis in economics. She attended the Kellogg School of Management's marketing program for business executives, and she is a graduate of the AMA's Advanced Market Research program that was taught at the University of Georgia. Secondly, presenting for us today is Zach Christensen. Zach is the Creative Director for the Stelter company. He has over 10 years of experience working with nonprofits on their design and their creative direction. Zach oversees Stelter's 30-plus creative team that serves over 1,500 nonprofit clients each year. Prior to joining Stelter, Zach worked as an art director for Trilex, which is a Des Moines-based marketing, communication, advertising, and interactive agency, where he worked with local and national brands, including EMC Insurance, Sign Seeds, and the Iowa State Fair. Zach graduated from Iowa State University with a BFA in graphic design. So welcome to both Cheryl and Zach, and thank you so much for agreeing to present with us today.
Thank you, Jen. We'll start off today by just telling you a little bit more about the study itself. The study was actually conducted and looking at a time period between April of 2015 and April of 2016. We're very excited about the study because it's the only one of its kind that really allows us to dig deeply into the different sectors in plan giving. It just never really made a lot of sense to us that someone who was a consistent donor, for example, to the arts and culture sector would behave or maybe have the same thought process as someone who's giving to education or one of the other sectors. It's also the only study of its kind that really allows us to take a look at the differences between the behaviors of people who donate frequently to nonprofits and those who are more infrequent donors. So the study itself is balanced to U.S. Census data. It's balanced for age and income, education, region and race, as well as a number of other factors. As you can see on our screen, from a gender perspective, our millennial and boomer populations are fairly similar in size. This is actually the very first year that millennials have outnumbered boomers, and then our Gen Xers and our matures are a little bit smaller. The study is significant at the 95% confidence level at a plus or minus 1.5%. And for those of you that aren't statisticians, what this really means is just simply that if we were to repeat this study 100 times, that 95 times out of 100, we would expect to get the same results with no more than a 1.5 variance. The study is conducted online using a Nielsen panel of 500,000 subjects. And Stelter is very lucky to have been able to participate in this study. We work with a company called the Natural Marketing Institute, and they're a very large marketing research firm just outside of the Philadelphia area. They've allowed us to craft core questions regarding charitable giving, and then each of the last couple of years we've also embedded a number of proprietary questions into the study. So I'm going to move on from there and just kind of get down to some basics. I think it's always good to kind of review ages when we're talking about generations. The time slips away so fast, and here in another couple of weeks I'm going to have to change these numbers again. But when we refer to millennials today, we're going to be talking about individuals between the ages of 19 and 39. Our Gen Xers are between the ages of 40 and 51. Our boomers are between the ages of 52 and 70, and our mature audience are those individuals who are age 71 and plus. So these are just some basics regarding the methodology and some general descriptions. Zach, I know there are some real basic principles as well on good creative. Do you want to share some of those with us?
Yeah, Cheryl. Really, I want to talk about three things quick this morning, the audience, fonts, and images. Now, lucky for us when it comes to our audience, we're typically talking about folks 55 and up. So we have to really think about what characteristics do those people tend to have. And looking at our research, we can begin to review the motivational drivers that each generation has when it comes to an organization. Then we can start to generate content that reinforces those drivers or combats the feelings that they are having. And as far as the printed piece goes, our biggest consideration for this group is poor and deteriorating eyesight. We will, of course, want to make sure that what we're producing, what we're presenting to our donors is actually readable. So that kind of leads me into the next section that I want to talk about. We all know that there's tons of different types of fonts when, when we open up our computer or we open up Word. When it comes down to it, there's really two types, and it's sans serif versus serif. And I've kind of laid them out here on the screen for you. And I like to say, the one that's on the left has the little feet, and the one on the right doesn't have feet at all. Most non-creatives, probably like you guys on the phone, non-designers I should say, don't really care about this kind of stuff, but I tend to geek out when it comes to this. And we really need to pay attention to these types of things. The fonts on the left, like Georgia and Garamond, are great for use in body copy because they're much easier for the human eye to read. And those little feet actually make it, the eye travel faster across the content, making it easier to read. On the flip side of things, the sans serifs, like the ones on the right, like Helvetica and Arial, work better for headlines and callouts. These tend to be a little bit larger and carry more weight on the page, and they draw in the reader's eye a little bit more. And they're actually best for reversed fonts. And yes, you can have some reversed fonts when it comes to highlighting information. I would try to limit it as much as possible, but as you can see on the right-hand side, the sans serif font is much easier to read when it comes to reversing out fonts. But the last thing I want to talk about before I flip it back over to Cheryl is images. As we all know, images can speak 1,000 words, and it's true. Images that directly relate to your organization and the great things that you are doing are the best to have in your pieces. Another thing that we need to take into consideration is people tend to view themselves 10 years younger than they actually are. And we're not all supermodels like Cheryl, so we've got to show people Cheryl always gets a kick out of that one. We always want to show people in their everyday situations, not overly staged, because in the end what we're trying to do is elicit an emotional response from our donors. And through these images, hopefully your brand will be the first thing that they think of when it comes to giving. Cheryl?
All right, let's get into the data, the good part, right, Zach? This is a question that you'll see in a lot of different research studies, and it just gets down to the heart of the matter is why do people donate money to charitable organizations? The blue bar is information from last year's study, the 2015 study, and the red or reddish-orange bar is our 2016 data. So the number one reason why people give is because it makes them feel good to help other people. Secondly, and a drop of about 10 percentage points, it's because they support a cause they strongly believe in. Once we get past those first two answers, you'll see we take a major drop, so 30 points from the top bar. where we're getting into things like it helps me feel good to help animals, if we're dealing with medical research or health care, maybe a friend or family member had a certain medical condition. So the takeaway from this is it really is more of that emotional appeal, how it makes me feel that makes us successful when it comes to plan giving communications. So the whole title of our presentation today, Data to Design, is, well, there are some very good numbers out there and there's good research out there. Invariably, people ask us after these presentations, well, that's great, but I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to put it into practice. And so that really is the purpose of today's presentation. So let's look at some emotional appeals. And Zach, why don't you show us a couple of examples of some organizations that have been really successful at this?
Yeah, sure. We actually have quite a few clients that do a really good job of doing this. And, my job on a daily basis is to ensure that our marketing materials are conveying those messages out to the donors. And I look at almost everything that comes out of this building, and I'm amazed every day at all the great messages that actually get put out there. But this is an example of UNICEF, and as you may or may not know, UNICEF's main goal kind of organizationally is to save lives, build futures, and deliver emergency relief when it comes to disasters and that kind of stuff. So their use of real people, real stories creates a strong emotional tie between the reader and the mission. Like Cheryl just said, donors give because it makes them feel good. So it only makes sense for us to communicate how donors' money is being used to make a positive impact on the organization's mission. In this case, UNICEF packs a punch with a combination of emotional photos and an inspiring quote that shows how UNICEF is making a difference in the lives of children like Amanda. And as we click onto the inside, so we've got a nice quote there from Amanda, my dream when I grow up is to be a professional, to help. Again, a very inspiring message. And then on the inside, on the right-hand panel, we drive readers to a web link. Again, we can start tracking where people are coming from to see, how well this is working. And again, this is just another opportunity to show more about the impact that UNICEF is having on children like Amanda. Another example that I wanted to show today, and I think this one's really good, is from LSI here in Iowa, Lutheran Services of Iowa. The way that they tell this story about Jaden is very, very impactful. It's a story of a little boy who has had some big struggles in life. He had talked about killing himself. He had talked about putting himself in hurtful situations. And his mom, as tough of it as it was, took him to LSI to get help in, mentally, helping him figure out things in life. And this is just a great story of the impact that his family received from LSI. Again, a quote from his mom at the top, and then a picture of him there today showing that, their mission is being accomplished through the work that they're doing with these types of individuals. Again, each of the examples are targeting an emotional message that plays to the people's idea of wanting to help others.
Okay, thanks, Zach. This is a proprietary question that Stelter has embedded into the study. And we just simply ask, when it comes to donating money to nonprofit organizations, do you prefer to give to local organizations, national organizations, or global organizations? And invariably, the information comes back with a strong preference to give local. And this is something that I would encourage all organizations to take a really hard look at and look at ways that you can incorporate some locality into your copy or maybe even into visuals, because these numbers, they've grown actually since 2015 by a few percentage points. And you'll see down that left side, we look at just donors in general, we look at our age bands, we look at difference between frequent and infrequent donors, ethnicity, household income, etc. There are actually 60 different breakdowns for each question in this study. And I will tell you that 60 out of 60 times the preference is to give local. So, it may be that your an organization that has multiple counties, look at breaking it down county by county. If you're a national organization, is there a lower common denominator, state level, for example, global. On a global basis, we have a number of clients who actually, some do business here and actually have donors from the United States and actually have causes here in the U.S. Others work entirely outside of the U.S. But you can still talk about the importance of U.S. dollars. So really take a hard, solid look at this, because donors give to individuals who look and act like them, and they very, very strongly prefer to make a difference in their own backyard. In fact, I know you've got a really good example of someone who's done this really well.
Yeah, I've got a couple that I want to actually share with folks today that I think did a good job. The first one is Ohio Food Bank. I think they do a great job of highlighting the organization's impact on its communities through the use of simple personalization and variable data. Here in this example, we show how an organization with wide reach can target a message and segment its marketing campaigns, again, through the simple use of personalization. For this, we created personalized variable data cover letters for recipients in targeted counties and highlighted the impact that the gifts are having in each county. Now, as I flip through here, I've left all of the personalization points in pink, so you can see we have Pike County, we have the name, we have the first 3 paragraphs actually have the county represented. And then on the right-hand side, and as I switch here, you'll notice that the little illustration that we have actually changes as well, and the numbers below. So again, this is a really nice, simple way of showing how it can be local in Ohio specifically. Now the next one that I wanted to show, this was the YMCA of the Twin Cities up in Minnesota. Again, they have a very diverse, all ages, all ethnic backgrounds, household incomes, net worths. So their donor base is very, very wide. At the top, and this is the backhand of their newsletter. The top section of their newsletter is generally about YMCA, so youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. And then we went really, really specific with the Our Impact section below that. And we highlighted 6 bullet points of how their services are helping people within their community specifically. So again, a great way to highlight the localization and how those communities are being impacted by that organization. And then the last one that I wanted to share with you, and this is Ronald McDonald House Charities, and this would be kind of the inside page 3 of a 4-page newsletter. Again, they used infographics here very, very nicely to show the amount of volunteers that they've had in 2015, the amount of the amount of families that they've provided kind of a home away from home since they opened in '91. And then on the right-hand side, the amount of meals and lodging expenses that they've spent on families in 2015 alone. So again, this is reinforcing the fact that they're being good stewards of donor dollars and really highlighting the great things that they're doing for that organization.
Thanks, Zach. This is kind of an interesting slide. We put a number of agreement questions into the study, and I'm putting this one in here just to illustrate for you how donors aren't necessarily intuitive when it comes to understanding how nonprofits do business. So the first part of this question is an agreement statement that says, I only donate to organizations that give 100% of their donation to the cause. And that seems really silly, doesn't it? Because I don't know how donors think that, you keep the lights on or gas in the vans or pay staff. But just if you look at these numbers, anywhere from about 60% to over 70% of individuals strongly and totally agree with that statement. So they really aren't really thinking too deeply on how a nonprofit operates. The second part of the statement, though, is an area of concern, because then we say, how much trust do you actually put in to the nonprofits that you donate to that they actually are putting 100% of your donation to the stated cause. And here you see the numbers are pretty consistent across the board, anywhere from a low of 18% with donors in the education sector up to a high of about 33% of individuals who are giving to organizations that are more global in nature. And where this really comes into play from a planned giving perspective is we see a big difference when it comes to those generational bands. In the past, particularly for organizations dealing with that mature audience, it was very easy in copy to talk about what you're doing with your donation because those individuals are big readers. They had the time to read and they don't mind reading long copy. However, as we move into boomers and younger generations, we see a major shift. Those generations are not nearly as willing to read copy, and therefore we need to take a look at some alternative methods to show them how the dollars are being used. It's very important moving forward because as the nonprofit industry becomes more and more competitive, just as we would if we were buying a good, we like to do business with organizations that we trust. And so, Zach, you've done some really great things here, just using some icons and some other art elements to really demonstrate how donors are making an impact with their dollars.
Yeah, Cheryl, I'm going to actually show 3 examples today of organizations that I think did a really good job of just highlighting how they're being good stewards of donor dollars and where kind of that money is going. So the first one that I wanted to show was Bright Focus. And in each one of these examples, we kind of do an infographic style pullout. Infographics are a great way to really distill down and simplify content to make it super easy for people to understand. Like Cheryl just said, people are getting away from wanting to read tons and tons of paragraphs of copy to get to specific points. So these are really, these infographics are a way to, again, distill down that copy to make it very succinct and very clear. So as you can see in this example, Bright Focus splits their donations across 3 areas, $87 million here for Alzheimer's research, 15 for macular degeneration, and then 24 for glaucoma. Again, our artists here created 3 simple little infographics to represent what each one of those branches were, and it's just kind of a fun way to show that information. The next one that I wanted to show is Catholic Charities. This is actually in the inside of kind of an oversized trifold brochure. Down there in the middle panel at the bottom, again, they're showing Catholic Charities by the numbers. So they're highlighting the amount of volunteers that they had this past year, the amount of folks that went through their employment program at 665, and then again, the amount of meals that they provided to people within their programs. Again, great ways to reinforce the work that they're doing. And then the last piece that I wanted to show, and this kind of goes back to that global mention that Cheryl just talked about, and I think a lot of the global charities that we work with do a really good job of highlighting specifically how they're accomplishing their missions in other countries. But this was AmeriCares. Again, this is a kind of the inside flap of a trifold brochure. They do a really good job in this example of highlighting the specific things that they're doing in Africa to help children in need. And then in addition, on the back side of this, as you can see that little circle, and if I should have zoomed in on it for you, but I didn't, sorry. It just shows where the dollars are being spent. So 97% of each dollar is being used for their mission. So again, it's a great way to reinforce the great things that people are doing. Cheryl?
Okay, this slide's going to take a little bit of explanation. When there's a clear choice between an A or a B, we talk about statistically significant differences. For example, when we're talking about our age bands, someone is either a boomer or a mature, or they're a Gen X or a millennial. When we are in a situation where there's more than one possible answer, we look at something called indexing. And because donors are able to give to more than one type of organization, this slide is a demonstration of indexing. So think about the number 100 as being average, and any number over 120 being a high index number, and you'll see those highlighted in the gold boxes. So if we look at the column on the left, this is where donors have indicated where they would first like to learn about a charitable organization. And you can see that it starts with personal experience on the top, moves down through friends and relatives, looks at internet and websites, family members, employees of organizations, and then gets into mass media and direct mail. If we look then across the top, find the sector that, as a listener, that you're in, and then look at those numbers vertically. So we'll start with arts and culture. As you can see that at 148, they index very high for personal experience, where going on down the line at 25, that would be a very low index for nonprofit organization. Same thing, as you look at the other gold boxes, you can see areas, and you can see that they're very different across those organizations. I want to call attention, though, to medical research, which is second from the right, public and society benefit on the right, human services, which is 4 columns from the right, and education. And you'll notice that there are no boxes highlighted in any of those sectors. And really, the takeaway from all of this is just simply that there is no one single method or one single channel for delivering communications about your organization, and that if you're not taking a multi-channel perspective when it comes to planned giving communications, you're probably missing a good percentage of your potential. So, Zach, I'm going to turn this back over to you to talk about some really some easy things and some simple things that everyone should be looking at when it comes to multi-channel communications.
I would love to say they're easy and simple, but sometimes they're not. But anyways, here we go. National MS is one of our clients that I think does a great job when it comes to developing out a multi-channel approach. They came to us with the hopes of giving more gift intentions and to generate some additional leads for their gift planning officers to follow up on. So we recommended this package, and I'll walk you through it here quickly. But in it, it had 2 different cover letters. One cover letter went to the general audience, so it was a more general planning message, and the other went to Legacy Society members that was more, thank you for your donations, thank you for the types of gifts that we're receiving, this is kind of how we're using those things. The second piece in there was the newsletter. I think MS does an exceptional job of highlighting doctors and researchers that are using the money that people are donating and highlighting the types of work that they're able to do with these types of donations. So this story, again, was about a doctor who was benefited from the donations to MS and the advancements that he's been able to make with this diagnosis. In addition, on the inside, MS does a really good job. They're, again, going back to my comments at the very beginning around photography, they have amazing photography of people who have been diagnosed with MS, but they're still, doing the things that they love on a daily basis. So, again, the messaging behind this was general gift planning, estate planning and wills. But again, they wanted to really focus in on the great things that the organization was doing. So from a multi-channel approach, we also recommended segmented emails that went out. You're probably looking at this and saying, well, ouch, it's small, Zach. I'm sorry about that again. The pictures are all actually the same in this, but when I talked about those motivational drivers at the beginning based on different ages, so the 40 to 54 was a different message for each one of those options. The 55 was different than the 70. So we really honed in on those different age groups and some of those motivational drivers that they have when it comes to giving. And the next one that I wanted to talk about was the Daughters of the American Revolution. In this, we created a series of planned giving ads for their Spirit magazine. It's a magazine that goes out to members every other month. So each one of these bi-monthly ads were designed to educate readers about a specific planned gift in kind of a catchy, lighthearted way. So obviously, leave the last slice for us. Research actually shows using a little catchy message that's not overly cheeky actually sticks with people. So as a part of this, we also included within the publication it's kind of a blown-in reply card / envelope. So people could respond to the gift planning message, and they could sign up to receive more information or get additional language to include in their will. Now, on the left side of this, at the bottom, we've highlighted in red an actual landing page that they could go to. It's also in the ad. If viewers or readers went to the landing page, this is what they're presented with. So a very similar message. Again, reinforcing including DAR in your estate plans and a unique way to do it. And then on the right-hand side, we showed them an actual image of what they're getting, and I can't stress that enough. We want to show people what we're going to provide to them. On our reply cards, we want to make sure we show the brochure or show that what we're going to give them is in there. So it's a very simple form: name, email, address, and then download the brochure. So click on that, and that downloads directly to your computer.
Okay, we started out this afternoon talking about some basics on not only research, but some basics on creative content. And I want to bring us back around to some basics because I would imagine just about everybody now is heavily into planning for 2017. And one of the things that really was an eye-opener, I think, to us and a number of others is really the necessity for doing a lot more education when it comes to estate planning. We embedded a question into the study this year just asking how important is it to have a will? And as you can see, just even looking at very simply at gender differences, only 41% of men over the age of 18 and women and 45% of women even think it's very important to actually have a will. And the numbers below that indicate then the percentage of each gender that actually has a will. So it's 35% of men and only 30% of women. So a lot of times we get hung up on some of the more complicated gift vehicles. If we're spending a lot of time on CGAs and complicated trusts and a lot of technical information on various tax benefits, take a long, hard look at these numbers and think about going back to just simple copy on why someone should have a will, what it might mean to them from the perspective of being able to give a gift to a cause that's important to them, and then look at some very simple ways to carry out that education with either calls to action or other literature types. And Zach, I'm going to have you then show a couple of examples of some things that we've done very recently to that point.
Yeah, we actually try to do this on a regular basis because we understand the importance of talking to our donors about planning and planning for the future. This example that you see on the screen now is something that we actually did in October, right before actually the PPP conference when we originally presented this. But this was a piece that we put out for Creighton and really talking about what's going on right now. So October, Estate Planning Awareness Month. We created a simple email that Creighton could send out that just reinforced the importance of planning for their donors and providing them a simple tool to get started with this idea of estate planning. So again, very simple button takes them directly to the page on their website where they can download the kit, collect a little bit of information, which you can use as leads in the future. But again, a very simple way to get estate planning documents in front of someone. In the next slide, I've got two more examples. The one on the left is Easter seals. So we paired the estate planning book that that we use, that we create. There's a bunch of them out there. So if you have one already, that you typically use, we can add that into the work that we might produce for you, or definitely pair those with stories like this. Plan today for peace of mind tomorrow. Again, it puts the donor in the mindset of planning, gets them thinking about the ways that they might be able to impact Easter seals in the future. And again, on the right-hand side, this is just another example. This is actually the back page of American University's newsletter. Very simple call-out box, just a little bit of reverse copy there. Plan for the future, and then a paragraph of text about how important it is to plan. So again, I think there's 3 simple ways of highlighting the importance of getting that idea of planning in your donor's mindset. Cheryl?
Well, let's look at what are donors interested in. So we looked at a number of various gift types, anything from honor and tribute gifts, CGAs, charitable remainder trusts, a couple of tax opportunities to just really gauge donors' interest. If we are going to put a successful giving plan together going into next year, what should we be talking about? And one of the things that's crystal clear is that honor and tribute gifts are top of mind, and that for the most part we're not doing as good a job as we could be in really promoting them more. I'll tell you, Stelter, we've had a lot of discussions with our good friend Dr. Russell James, and I know that he is also very bullish when it comes to honor and tribute gifts. As I mentioned earlier, we look at each one of these opportunities across 60 different possibilities, and in 59 cases out of 60, honor and tribute gifts are the #1 area of interest. So if you're looking, if you have them, number 8 on a list of 9 ways that you can give, you might want to look long and hard at moving that further up the list. The one area where we don't see them at the very top is when we look at that group who has a net worth of over $2 million. And in this case, the #1 response came back in for saving capital gains taxes. But as you can see, it was very close. Only a percentage and a half really from top to bottom there. And if you look at that entire category, they really skew differently than the other areas that we look at, in that there's very little difference. But if you look at the drop from honor and tribute gifts to CGAs or CRTs or any of the other tax, you can see that there's a major drop from an interest level once we get beyond that honor and tribute gift. And this ties very nicely into the very first research slide that I showed you about the reasons on why people give, and that whole interest in the emotional side of giving. And this plays very nicely into then the opportunity, whether it's a family member, if it's an educational related communication, maybe it's a teacher or a professor that really inspired somebody moving on in life. We work with a number of athletic organizations where maybe it was a coach or a trainer, or maybe even just a friend who really was encouraging somebody to move forward. And so, Zach, you've got an example I'd like to have you show on how an organization that maybe is a little bit different than a family member was very successful in looking at honor and tribute gifts.
Yeah, the one that's going to pop up here in a second is a project that we worked on for San Francisco Symphony. And Michael Thomas is their music director, and he's kind of the man who built the symphony into what it is today. And they did a really nice, this is a kind of an oversized postcard, excuse me. They did a 70 at 70 bequest match campaign. So it was an honor to Michael Thomas on his 70th birthday. They did this whole campaign around honoring him on his 70th, and they tried to get 70 new people to make bequest intentions to San Francisco Symphony. So again, we focused on the cover, create a future for San Francisco Symphony, act now, make a lasting impact with the Symphony's 70 at 70 bequest campaign. And then once you opened it up, we talked and told this message about celebrating the 70th birthday of someone who's meant so much to the symphony over time. In addition to that, we had it's kind of a glued-in reply card, a fast feedback form, offered people a chance to decide whether or not, yes, I'm interested now, no, not interested at this time, but maybe in the future. Gave them some additional options, and then again, highlighted a spot where they could make a gift today. So again, I think this is one of those unique opportunities that you might be able to look for within your organization. You know, if there's a retiring president, we recently did a project for Adelphi University where they had an outgoing president, and he wanted to invite people to give a gift as in his retirement honor. So just think about those various ways that you might be able to bring in important people within your organization, or like Cheryl said, to coach or something along those lines. Cheryl?
We still get questions from time to time from organizations regarding the use of digital technology. And the normal dialogue is just simply, our donor base is over, the age of 70 or 75, so I'm only going to use direct mail because I don't think these folks are online, nor will they ever be online. And so I want you to look at the differences, the numbers from 2015 on the bottom and then 2016 above that. We asked specifically about laptops, tablets, and smartphones, and the comfort level of these generations on using this technology. And as you can see, particularly when we look at the older two generations, our boomers and matures, a very big jump between 2015 and 2016 on the comfort level of using these devices. So 9 out of 10 boomers, 85% of matures are saying that they are very comfortable in using, again, laptops, tablets, smartphones. We also look at and monitor internet activity. How much time are individuals spending online? Again, it's still, these numbers are very similar from 2015 to 2016, where, again, 75% of boomers, 2 out of 3 matures are saying they're spending a significant amount of time online, which, again, just ties into the fact that your website is going to be a very important tool when it comes to talking about plan giving. So, Zach, what are some things that we can look at or talk about that really enhance that activity?
Yeah, the main thing that we want to focus on here is the user experience. The idea of the traditional website is starting to fade out a bit, and sites built with the user in mind are beginning to take over. Now what I mean by that is reflected here in the site that we did for John Brown University. We didn't necessarily seamlessly match the branding of all of their other subpage structure. Instead, we built a site with the donor in mind. So knowing that somebody that might come to this site organically, or one that comes to this page from a Google search or their home page, we wanted to provide them a clear and simple path to kind of get to the information that makes the most sense for them. So we started this by saying, begin my giving journey. Listed out just the giving amount, the age, the assets, something that, typically when people come to the website, and we did some research around this, they have, hopefully everybody knows their age, but they have a giving amount, or they may even have a specific asset in mind. So we want to make those things very, very clear up front. And then the picture of the family below, and it's kind of tough, again, this is kind of small, but that's I'm not sure where to get started. So this leads them through 3 simple questions that kind of puts them into the right mindset in terms of where they might start their planning or where they might start their giving. So once they go to the inside of the page, we've personalized this content to that organization. On the right-hand side, the View My Free brochure, we've highlighted a call to action. So again, this is an area where we can begin to collect data on individuals, get some prospects or some people for gift planning officers to talk to. As we go down on the page here at the bottom, we make it very, very clear what the next steps are. We want to lead people through a logical progression of, getting in touch with you as a development officer, reaching out, making sure that they have all of the tools and resources they need to make these types of gifts. Now, as a side, the one thing that I wanted to mention, we've kind of gone back and forth with this today a little bit, is the importance of driving donors to your website. Now, you can use segmented emails and splitting your ages up into different demographics and all of that fun stuff, but it's very, very, very important to drive people to articles that are specific to them. So going, again, back to what Cheryl and I said at the beginning, segmenting those messages out into the different age groups is key, and talking to them about some of those things that are key in their life right now, whether it's saving for retirement, whether it's having time enough to plan, all of those types of different motivational drivers are keys to getting people into your website. The next one that I wanted to show was actually a project that we did in utilizing the social channel. So this was something that we've put together for VFW. These are Facebook ads that serve as a way to drive response to their landing page. And on that landing page, we've provided a form for prospects to receive free resources on making gifts. So in this, we created 2 Facebook ads, one with a message on estate planning, and did an A/B test on the 2 different images. So as you can see, the one on the left, we've really focused on a family-style image, and on the one on the right, we focused on the military kind of father image. In addition to this, we created a landing page with strong calls to action for conversion tracking with additional fields to collect information and start a conversation with our donors. Now a quick update on this one before I jump in to show you the actual landing page. It was very interesting. The family photo received the most shares. So the one on the left actually received the most shares, and the soldier image on the right received more likes. So as it stands right now, we view the shares as a stronger response for us, because what that did is actually casted a wider net for VFW. So going back to some of those reasons why people support organizations, hearing about it from friends, this is going to pop up on your friend's Facebook wall. You're going to see that they, have either liked or support the VFW. So just another way of casting a wider net for your audience. And this was an example of the page that it actually took them to. So it was very simple: name, email address, download the guides. And then once they actually got to the page, so once they submitted their information, the guide that we discussed was at the top, and then we actually listed out some additional resources that people could use below that were very similar in that idea of planning.
We're going to finish up today just talking a little bit about frequent donors. Wouldn't it be great if there were a way to identify some of their characteristics a little bit earlier on in the process, rather than having to count back 10 or 15 years to see how many times they've given? What this slide demonstrates, again, you can see the sectors at the bottom. The dark gray or black bar, those are percentage of individuals who give to that type of organization more than once a year. And then the blue bar demonstrates those who give about once a year or less. You can see there's a big variation. With faith-based and human services organizations on the left, it's about 1 in 2 that gives more than once a year. When we get down on the right side to arts and culture, for example, it's about 1 in 5. So what are some characteristics of frequent donors? Well, I can tell you they tend to be more female than male. They're a little bit older on average than infrequent donors. They also, and this may surprise you, they also are more likely to have children still living in the household. This is a statistically significant difference where you see those little asterisks on the screen. From an income and net worth, really no difference. From a college education perspective, they are much more likely to obtain a college education. Really no differences from an ethnicity standpoint. This one at the bottom, though, is kind of interesting. One of the characteristics that we see a very strong statistically significant difference is that these individuals tend to describe themselves as being extremely or very social, right? So what do we mean by that? Besides being active in social media, They may also be strong volunteers to organizations. But if they are volunteers, these are the individuals who are likely to offer to chair an organization. They're the ones that step up first. And the reason for that is they like to be in the know. And they like to have other people believe that they are in the know more so than the average participant in the organization. Talked about volunteering. Frequent donors at a rate of almost 2 to 1 strongly agree with the statement that volunteer work is an important part of their life. And so we look at the chart on the right and we look at who actually is really stepping up and wanting to get more involved with volunteer work. It's our millennial organization. And this information is consistent with what we saw in 2015 as well. So one thing that organizations may want to take a harder look at are ways of recognizing volunteers on a more regular basis. Here we have an example of one of our clients in the environmental animal group where it's a little bit hard to probably read on the screen, but on the version on the right, you'll see that little medallion. It's just something that this organization uses on all their communications to volunteers to just basically single them out, show them appreciation for the amount of time that they're currently donating to that organization. And then this is just a simple way, again, using variable data on a simple postcard, talking and acknowledging the fact on the right that somebody is currently volunteering. On the left, looking at a more general donor base with also, giving them the opportunity to donate. We're going to finish up with kind of a fun one here, but one that really works. We look at just pet ownership. And for the second year in a row, we see that frequent donors are statistically significantly more likely than infrequent donors to own one or more dogs. And these are my very own children that you see here on the screen. And Zach and I laugh about this all the time, but it's just simply, if you want to improve response, put a dog in it. We looked at cats, we looked at reptiles, we looked at combinations, we looked at equine, we looked at a number of variations, but the only area where we find statistically significant difference is for individuals with one or more dogs. So here's a classic example of how an organization uses a very nice close-up photo, and it's something that you would expect to see for a humane society. But here's an example of where we've placed this cute little dog in this woman's arms for a senior living center. Again, improves response. This is an email for St. Mary's College out in California, where again, with our boomer participant, we've got that dog in the foreground. And then this is just a brochure for Barnes Jewish Hospital. Again, it may sound silly, but it's a simple thing that anybody can do, and I would encourage you to go back and, again, look at photography and consider adding a dog to your communications materials. And Jen, I think that takes us to our questions.
That's right. Thank you so much, Cheryl and Zach. I'll let you take a breather and take a drink for a second while we look through the questions. We did have a couple that came in throughout. If you have any more questions on your mind, go ahead and send them in. We just have about 5 minutes here that we'll take a couple. So going back to the very beginning of the presentation, Zach, when you were talking about fonts and the types of fonts to use for the audience, Caitlin has a question. She was wondering, what size of font do you recommend using when you're doing reverse text with this audience?
So it helps if I unmute myself. It really depends on the font and the size or the weight of the font. I really don't like to reverse a lot of thin sans serif fonts. Typically 12, 13 point is about the smallest that I like to go, but again, it's going to depend on the amount of contrast, the weight of that font. You know, our designers here have your donors in mind as often, you know, when we design everything. So it's really, again, going back to the size of the font and the weight is really what makes it readable or not.
Okay, and Cheryl, for you, going back to the question where we asked donors how much they trust an organization when they're giving their donation, if they're going to be spending 100% of their donation towards the cause, if they do that, and then if they trust the organization to do that. Barbara is asking, are you able to determine why there is such a low level of trust from those who donate to educational institutions?
Thanks, Jen. I would say, just to tell Barbara, it's not just education. Even though, you know, that education was at 18%, there really was no sector that did particularly well. And I really think it has to do with the lack of repetition on organizations reporting back on where the money went. Generally what happens, somebody makes a contribution, we do good stewardship on that, we thank them for their contribution, and it ends there. Donors crave repetition. So the more opportunities that you can find to go back to that donor, whether it be individually or as a group, to continually to reinforce where those donations went, then that's where we see those trust levels start to rise.
Okay, and this question kind of folds into that for Zach. You were showing some examples of how to illustrate where the money is going, and Scott is asking, aren't the infographics that you illustrate in your examples basically the same types that would be included in an annual report, which would also be provided to the donors targeted in the planned giving mailings? Zach?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Yes, they are. In fact, a lot of the folks that we work with, we will pull some of that information directly out of their annual reports. But the reason that we put that in there is we pair those things with giving and planning messages. So, you know, your annual report may not talk about why it's important to give, or, you know, it's going to probably mention the mission. But when we pair it with our information, it's really tying that idea of giving and tying that idea of the stats or those numbers one-to-one right with each other.
Okay, and real quick for Cheryl, what was the ratio of the dog owners again? I know you know this.
It's again, it is a statistically significant difference. For frequent donors, the percentage is 47.2%, and infrequent donors, it's 42.6%.
Okay, and we have time for just one last question, and it's from Larry, and he's saying, we're new to plan giving. You presented a lot of information today. What's the one thing that you would recommend to improve our chances for being successful?
I'll go ahead and take that one, Jen, thanks. The number one thing that all organizations can do is take a good, long, hard look at your database. When's the last time it was updated? Is the information in it really what you need in order to move forward? Have you done age appending on it? Are you looking at just beyond, you know, the very basics as far as how you might look to try to segment your communications moving forward in 2017?
Great. Thanks so much, Cheryl. Thanks, Cheryl and Zach, for spending the last hour with us today. I know everyone on the call appreciates your expertise. That is all the time that we have. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have further questions about what was presented, please feel free to reach out to Cheryl, Zach, or myself. And if you do have questions on any of our products or services, you can visit us at Stelter.com. One of the most common questions that comes in throughout the presentation is, will we have access to the slides? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. We're happy to provide you with this complimentary webinar, and we have recorded it. Barring any technical difficulties, the recording and the slides will be on our website at Stelter.com/webinars within the next day or two. You will be getting an email that will let you know when that is available. So thanks again for joining us today. We hope you found the last hour enjoyable and the presentation useful. This is our last webinar for 2016, so I would like to wish you all a wonderful holiday season, a happy new year, and look for our 2017 webinar series scheduled to be released after the new year. Have a great afternoon, everyone.